The 9K range. This is already a very interesting conversation because listen to these names in this field. Patrick Cantlay, Ludwig Oberg, Justin Thomas, Hideki Matsuyama. That's your top 4 of the 9K range. Sung Jae Im sits right in the middle at 9,500. Victor and his broken digit, $9,300. Tony Finau, 91, and Sam Burns, 9,000. Just a quick note on Victor. So he did an interview with Euros. So he broke his toe. Okay, broke his pinky toe on his right foot. Is it called the pinky toe? That the one that goes wee 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 all the way home?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the one that everybody calls it. So yes, pinky toe.
The pinky toe. And as of this moment, we are live on Monday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at in the United States. He is still in this field. He told Eurosport he's going to try to tape it up, going to try to take painkillers, and he is going to see where that lands him. I don't know, Greg. I don't think I've ever played a guy. Well, I've never played a guy that I've knowingly that knowingly has a broken digit, as far as I know.
That is concerning on any round of golf, any golf. Which foot is it?
His right.
It's his right. That will help with the golf swing, I would imagine. Well, let's just say it could be worse. All right, that's not the worst toe to break if you're a golfer. But in this case, this is, many will say, the hardest walk on the PGA Tour. It's a long walk. There's a lot of, it's not only a long golf course, but there's a lot of space between holes, and it can be a brutal walk. So that doesn't bode very well. The other thing that doesn't bode very well and leaves me with questions similar to where we were last year is he's no longer working with Joseph Mayo. So I'm not sure where we are with that. And I don't know what to make of Viktor Hovland in his game right now. I have no questions about his ability and his talent. But he and Joseph Mayo had some disagreements about the direction that they were going. And I know that Victor he likes to own his game, and he's not afraid of tinkering. And he does a lot of, I'll say messing around, even though it's not messing around. He tries stuff. And I don't know if that leads him into a very positive path at this point. So I have some concerns over that. And I'm fading Viktor Hovland for that this week, which always makes me nervous.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on the feet of Viktor Hovland for this week, but the rest of this 9K range, Greg, probably with a lot fewer concerns than those of Viktor Hovland's. When you get to lick your chops at the rest of this range, what do you take out of it?
Well, first and foremost, right at 9,900, Patrick Cantlay was fascinating to me. This was before Collin Morikawa came into the mix. So he's $200 cheaper than Collin Morikawa. I think Cantlay is a playable option. Last year was kind of bland for him. It wasn't terrible. His record here is pretty good. He has 2 top 10s that are both 4th place finishes. He's never finished outside the top 17, which is fine. It's not excellent because it's always a shorter field, but he was a guy that I was really interested in. With Collin Morikawa coming into the mix, I think Cantlay is probably out for me. Well, go ahead.
I wasn't going to add anything. I was just going to say, this is where Patrick Cantlay gave us the pampered bleep comment a couple of years ago.
Yes. That is a great sound bit.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you with some just nonsense, but that's where we're at.
So I think it leads me to my favorite play in this range, which is a former champion here in Justin Thomas. Now Justin Thomas almost fits the mold perfectly here, right? You talked about the off the tee. One of the big concerns I have with JT week in and week out is that driving accuracy, his ability to get the ball in play. I think that's out of the question this week. He's also been driving it very well lately. So I feel very good about him in that category. And although his strong suit tends to be iron play, and that's mitigated to some degree this week, the best part about JT's game is what he does with his wedges and his short game. I think both around the green and in that area where you approach around the green and into approach play, that 30, 40 yard shots all the way out to 80, 100, even 125-yard shots. That's JT's bread and butter. He's going to have a ton of opportunities in that range. So many opportunities in that range this week that it even mitigates some of the putting questions I have, which I look pretty heavily at putting in a tournament like this. I want guys who are strong putters. JT is not, but I think his wedge play, his ability to make birdies with short game will be enough to make him a factor this week. He might be my favorite play on the entire board.
Yeah, you look at some of the metrics, and these aren't perfect buckets, but when you start adding them up in this way, it's pretty clear. So from 50 to 125 yards, Justin Thomas fourth. So 50 to 125, that's a pretty big range. But inside the top 20, he's 17th from 50 to 75 yards, and then he's third from 100 to 125. So really, from off the green, once he takes putter out of his hand from whatever that distance is to about 125 yards, he's one of the best in the world.
Yes, and it makes him a serious factor, and I think that does explain to a large extent why his record here is so strong. Not only winning here, but winning here twice, but also finishing third on a couple of occasions, and he's got an additional top 5. He's got a really strong record here, and I think that's the reason why.
I found interesting, Greg, that there is a lot of Sungjae Im sentiment in the positive direction this week. Odds makers have him at basically the third shortest odds. He's going to be very popular in any one and dones that start this week. Things of that nature. I just see that name popping up quite a bit, and I like Sungjae, but maybe I'm not quite as bullish because of the depth of the 9K range. Should I be concerned that I'm lower than the industry on Sungjae?
I think Sungjae's a playable option. His putting it was very good last year, and his results that weren't in big tournaments were very strong. I think there's a very good reason to play him, but because the sentiment is so strong, he's kind of on the border for me. If no one was talking about him, I would say, oh yeah, you got to play him. But with everybody talking about him, high expected ownership, that would push me out on Sungjae. And that's just because I'm really close on him, on how I feel about him. I like where his game is. I like his fit on this golf course, but I don't love it. He's got a strong record here, not necessarily the strongest. I mean, everything's inside the top 13. Nothing better than the top 5. So he has a pretty good record here, but maybe a little too hit or miss in a range like this. And part of that is, I mean, you go down to 9,000 flat. The other play that I really like in this range is Sam Burns.
Sam Burns to me, I kind of fairly or unfairly, I sometimes lump him in with Wyndham Clark because I think the range of outcomes is pretty big for those guys. But really, Sam Burns, since the PGA Championship and even a little bit before that last year, was very, very good. And what you kind of need this week, the approach shots, give yourself a ton of opportunities, and the putting, that screams Sam Burns.
Yeah, he could be the best putter in this field year over year. Probably right up there with Xander Schauffele and maybe a Peter Malnati down at the bottom. Denny McCarthy's in this field, but Sam Burns is as good as it gets on the PGA Tour with the flag stick. So I love what he offers there. His short game also been phenomenal towards the second half of this season. And we know how long he is off the tee. So I think some of the errancy, that degree of variable that you speak of, comes from inaccuracy off the tee, some foul balls that he hits from time to time. And this week, more than any other, you can really get away with that. So it leaves me with JT and Sam Burns being my top 2 in this range. And I would put Cantlay at a third.